everybody, it's Kat, and I want to welcome you to this episode of Backstory Sessions. I'm joined today by my co-host, Matt. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Kat. Hey, everyone. How are you?
We have a really interesting episode. It's piqued my curiosity just from, the things that I know about it already.
Yeah, it should be pretty interesting.
I mean, we've had people that have been inspired to write, for a number of reasons.
Yeah, whether
But
it's personal experience or, some event or whatever.
yeah, Steve, when we had him on, and, it was that one line at the bank or whatever,
Right.
that prompted the song. So, we've heard a lot of fascinating stories about the writing process and, what is that moment when, like, some people are asleep, and they dream and they keep their recorder or their phone so that they don't forget it, or
Yeah.
they're driving in the car, a lot of things we've heard.
Yep.
But, you know, this one, I would say tops the cake, but not the wedding cake.
Yeah, that's true. That's certainly going to be an interesting tale, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, a hurricane comes and, like, takes away your dream beach wedding. I mean, how sad is that?
Yeah, well, it happens.
Well, it it does, and it did to our guests that we have today.
Yeah.
Uh, Tiffany's going to tell her story, and then, like, she made, I would like to say, lemonade out of lemons. Is that how it goes? I guess.
Yes, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
Yeah. So, and she did that by writing, using her writing skills and writing her feelings. So she's got, an album just came out, actually, dropped on Friday, I believe. And so everyone can look at our Facebook page and they'll be able to get the link and go ahead and download that.
Yeah, we seem to be getting a lot of stories that are close to some big event. This is probably like 3 or 4 that we've done so far this season that, like we have somebody who's releasing an album or whatever, and we're single, and, the podcast is very close to the release date. I find that interesting.
Yeah, I think it's hitting a lot. It's more aligned than it ever has been, I think, with releases. And I know we're going to have one right before a movie release coming up later this month. Also, we have one before the debut of a play.
No, that's true. Yeah. So, yeah, and we are going to talk to some of the actors from 2 of your plays that are going to be performed in June and July. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we're going to talk to the littles, as I call them, because they're the actors under 18. They're
Mm-hmm.
not really typical littles, I guess, but they are in corporate kindergarten and they're going to be on our Father's Day episode. And I can't wait to hear, their perspective, because it's been a long time since I've gotten to talk, just, well, really, like, I don't know, have we interviewed kids before?
Not that I can remember.
Yeah, I'm not remembering one. Oh, well, we had Drew.
Oh, that's
Uh,
true. Yeah, Drew.
I mean, I, I think he's a little bit older though, but he would be close.
How
The
old do you
closest
think Drew is now? He's got to be what, 15?
I would say, yeah, I believe he is. I think he just had a birthday and was 15. So
Yeah, I wonder if he ever got on Stranger Things, or he wanted to be an architect too, I think, didn't he?
yeah, I'd love to talk to him again. And
Yeah.
hey, Drew, if you're out there, yeah, catch up with what's going on.
Yeah.
'Cause he's all grown up a lot, in the couple of years since we talked to him.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what he's doing.
Yeah. So I don't get to talk to children very often, and especially, in interviewing them like about what they think. Like, I'm directing these kids, so I get to see them weekly, like going over their lines and things like that, but not really just like having a conversation. So it'll be really interesting
Yeah.
to see what they're like.
Yeah, and then we have some of the actors from the other play that you're doing.
Yeah, so we do have boxes. That's going to be, the play itself will be performed in July, but we have the mom and dad. So they're an elderly couple, that's the mom and dad of two adult children.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have them to look forward to in that episode. And since we're talking about boxes, which is the first drama that Tri County Mystery Meets has performed or will be performing, we had an event that's called Food for Thought. And, our main reason for wanting to do a Food for Thought event was dramas are not really performed as often as comedies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so when you write your own material, that can make people not as apt to come see the show because it's not familiar to them.
Right.
So we're trying, because I love dramas and I love writing dramas. So we're what we've done is we're feeding. So that's where the food part comes in
Mm-hmm.
for thoughts. These I'm going to call them community influencers. So we have them from the tri counties. So we have some from every county, which was the goal. And so I'm so happy, that we're pulling everybody together like that.
Right.
So we have about 15 people that are going to come and view a reading. So it will be the actors in costume, typically like in readings, they might all just be dressed in black and
Mm-hmm.
standing, but this is kind of a little bit, it's in between a typical reading and a performance. So the actors have had the script, they're pretty much ready to perform the play, but we're not going to have the props and all of that. So I'm really excited to, about tomorrow. About this whole concept, bringing people in. And then if they like what they see, they go out into their communities and, there are a number of ways that they can help us. They can tell a friend, they can post on social media,
Mm.
they could become a sponsor, they could refer other friends with businesses to become sponsors. They could have us do a fundraiser for their school or their business. So there's so many ways that,
So really, it's like a read through of the play and then a brainstorming session.
yes, with food,
Mm.
because it is a 2-hour play. So they're going to have food that they can eat while they're,
Right.
enjoying this 2-hour drama, which will probably make them cry.
Okay.
Hopefully it makes them feel something.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. And I can't wait to, just really see. That's the first opportunity for us to really see outside of the actors, what will be the response from this group. They are very diverse age groups. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's very important for this play because it really is very generational, I think.
Right. Yeah. I remember you telling me about this.
hmm So, it's a busy time. It's your birthday month.
Well, yeah, that's right. Couple more weeks.
Yep. So, summer begins.
Yeah. Hopefully
Lots.
my back will feel better. I think I pinched a nerve or something, but
Yes. You should stop pinching yourself.
yeah, something. Jeez.
Yeah. Well, of course, we are hoping that you feel better soon, soon, soon.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do too. Sorry. Just trying to rooch around here, trying to get comfortable in the chair while we're recording, and.
Probably not happening too well, but
It's tough for sure.
well, at any rate, we've got a great episode. I just can't wait to hear the backstory. I know how important that weddings are. And, you know, I don't want to say all the time, but I would say a good majority of the time, it's more important to the bride than the groom.
Yeah, usually.
I mean, maybe not the actual being married part, they probably love each other equally, hopefully, and, both
Hmm.
want that. But the ceremony part, it seems like that, I don't really usually hear guys saying, like, I can't wait you know, to grow up and
Yeah.
plan my wedding.
No, usually not. I
Yeah,
mean,
because they're like usually hoping they just don't pass out, or something.
right.
And
Yeah, they're just there for the party afterwards.
yeah, so, so I can see that, this was her dream. And if her dad was still alive, that's just something that's usually special with daughters and dads that walk
Hmm.
down the aisle and the dance that they have. So to have hurricane just like destroy that dream, that must be really hard. So
Yeah, well, I mean, Mother Nature doesn't care.
yeah, I know. Like that's some kind of mother, to like do that. Well,
You remember the beach wedding that we saw in?
yes,
Uh,
yes. And you provided the commentary.
yes, I was trying to remember the song that they were playing. It was like Freebird or something.
Yeah, it was quite interesting,
Yeah.
Um, and they were very lucky too because the weather a little bit later was. You remember that lightning?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, they were really lucky, like the way that they timed it. So that's always, even with plays or with anything, any outdoor events that you plan,
Hmm.
that's always, something over your head to worry about.
Yep, you can't stop the weather.
No, but can you stop the wedding? I don't know. I mean, that's what we got to find out.
Right, well, let's talk to Tiffany and see.
Tiffany, I want to welcome you to Backstory Sessions. We are so excited to have you as our guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited too.
Well, it is quite a backstory that has led you to us. We've heard a lot of stories, but I have to say, this is going to be a first of this type backstory. However, before we get to that, your backstory begins in California. Were you born there?
Yeah, born and raised in Sacramento. And I mean, if anyone has been, I mean, nobody ever thinks of Sacramento when they think of California. I think people just think of like sunshine and beaches, which is fine, but that is not where I grew up. I was definitely more rural and suburban. And there really wasn't much of a music community. So it made it hard for people like me, who this was all we thought about and all we wanted to do, to really kind of dig our heels into something that felt like we were a part of a music community. It's a very small one, but there's not much. So I had a struggle kind of getting my feet off the ground when it came to like cutting my teeth into the music business. It was hard. So I was always traveling to Nashville after I was done with college.
So at a young age then, you were musical, like were you the one? Did you come from a musical family?
I was the only one. My goodness, my family can't hold a tune. Love them to death. They cannot, they can't do it. I mean, nobody. I would think that maybe one of them could. But my grandpa was a huge lover of music. I mean, bless his heart, he couldn't sing either. I'm from what I remember, but he did always have music playing. He was really, really big into music. And my mom like loved listening to artists like Celine Dion, which caught my ear at a very, very young age. So I would say probably around 4 or 5 is really when I was like, oh my goodness, who is this lady and what does she do? And I remember she took me to one of her concerts in Concord, California. And I was like the youngest girl at the concert. And I had a concert tee on that went past my knees and I knew every song and I was standing on a chair. And most people in the crowd were obviously much older and they were kind of like, who is this girl? Like, how does she know all these songs? And all I knew is that whatever she did, I wanted to do. And I just never let it out of my brain. So I had karaoke machines. I was singing wherever I could. But it really was when I heard Leanne Rimes for the first time. And that was no more than a year or two later. And she was singing the national anthem specifically. And again, that song didn't mean something to me at 6 years old or 7 years old. It was just a really cute girl who looked young who was singing on a stage with a beautiful, huge, big voice. And I was like, oh my gosh, who is she? So then I became obsessed with the national anthem. And my parents were like, wow, we didn't know we had such a patriotic daughter. And so everywhere I could, I would sing the national anthem. And when you're that age, there you have no fear, right? And so that song didn't scare me at all. I just got up there and just like belted it out. And now the older I've become, I sing it quite often, but it comes with much more of a, you have to have a lot more respect for it, a lot more like treat it much more seriously. And now I get scared every time I sing it. I'm like, oh my gosh, if I mess this up, the whole world's going to hate me. But yeah, it was Leanne Rimes. And then from there, my mom was like, okay, so she likes country music. So she would always play Faith Hill, Martina McBride, Jody Messina. And what I realized is that out of all those women I just mentioned, even including Celine Dion, they're vocalists first and foremost. And I realized I just fell in love with the vocalist idea and just standing on a stage and singing. It's what I was obsessed with. And I never let it go. As much as my parents, I think, were just dying to hear one day I was going to further my career and maybe be a lawyer, they were like, oh, she's not going to do that. So I came home after college, put a band together, and toured the West Coast for like 5 years. And within that 5 years, I was going back and forth to Nashville, slowly but surely building my team, which I have today. And I kind of did everything. I don't want to say backwards. I kind of love the way I did it. I love that I've learned the ins and the outs of the business so much prior to kind of being in Nashville, learning what each kind of role is, the publicist, the entertainment attorney, the manager. I love that I was able to kind of learn that aspect much earlier on and have all of those pieces before moving to Nashville. And then when I met my manager, who was my last piece of the puzzle for me, other than obviously a label, which I do not have, I'm an independent artist, he was like, you got to be in Nashville. And I said, oh my goodness, when would you want me here? And he said, yesterday. And I said, okay, my bags packed yesterday. So I flew home. I packed up my apartment. I got a one-way ticket. I didn't know a soul moving to Nashville, and I've never looked back. And it's been 7 years.
Wow. So the one-way ticket, was that intentional so that you wouldn't be tempted to go back?
I knew I wouldn't be tempted. I had visited here enough already for work for the purposes of just slowly, like I would stay here a few weeks at a time and I would get a hotel, and that started getting costly, like renting a car, getting a hotel for that amount of time. And we just kind of all realized like this doesn't make sense. And I will say the moment the wheels touched down in Nashville, when it was permanent, when it was the one-way ticket, not just a time I was visiting, I had this sense of relief. I had a sense of weight actually being lifted from my chest. And that told me everything I needed to know. That meant I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And in all, in any other situation, for most people, that would be a nervous feeling. You land somewhere where you've never called home. You don't know anybody. You have no one your age that you're friends with. You would be nervous. You'd be scared. But for me, I felt more at peace and more at home than I've ever felt in California in my entire life.
So, how did you go about getting settled in Nashville? Did you start singing like immediately? Did you have a
Mm.
job? What was the plan?
So I knew when I moved here, because I was really, really scared. And this is what I had told my manager before moving. I had said, I'm so scared I'm going to get here and have nothing to do. I'm just going to sit on this couch in an empty house and kind of twiddle my thumbs and be like, oh my goodness, like, what have I done? And I was very, very lucky to be very, very busy from the moment I got here. We dove right into, I had already made an EP, but my manager was not happy with that work. And he had said, if you want to do this the right way, we got to do this all over again. And mind you, that was 4 years of work. And I go, oh my gosh, I have to start this all over. But I'm actually very grateful I had to start it over because it gave me purpose when I got here. I had to set my sights and work really hard to recreate all new music, get it reproduced. I mean, and that's a journey all in itself. But when it came to like even just meeting people, I'm a very outgoing girl. I mean, I've never met a stranger I didn't like, I just get out there. So I was going on Instagram and writing people on Instagram, and that's how I was meeting friends. I would see like a girl that looked friendly in a picture. She said she lived in Nashville, and I'd say, hey, want to get lunch? Want to grab coffee? And from there, that girl introduced me to another girl who introduced me to another girl, where I just started building my friend, circle slowly over time. It was around that time that I'm sure we will get into with the backstory that you're referring to that you haven't come across. It was around that time I met the guy that I would eventually become engaged to. I met him about 3 months into living in Nashville. So that was really, really quick. So I think my life just started taking form very fast. And I had a lot of things to do. I was busy. I was in the studio. I was at photo shoots. I was very lucky to be early on. My first single I released, which was written by Mickey Guyton. She That song that I released first got picked up by Radio Disney Country. So I was working alongside Disney, which was phenomenal because I'm a Disney fanatic. I love Disney. My mom used to work at Disneyland. So we were raised as like, oh my gosh, Disney, I've made it. And I think what I realized is, even though I was working and traveling for 5 years prior to moving to Nashville, I think I had this idea in my head that at first single, everything's going to take off, everything's going to happen. And I think a lot of people maybe think that. And what this town taught me, and I'm so glad it didn't break me, it made me stronger because I didn't allow it to break me. I love it so much. It made me more patient. If you ask my parents, they'll tell you I'm the least patient person in the world. When I want it now. And I will sometimes do things the wrong way, not like in a bad way, but just so I can quickly piece things together to have it. And I learned a lot of patience being here and knowing that you got to take the right steps and you got to take your time. And if you work hard enough and you continuously release good music and you continuously get better, your time will come. I genuinely believe that. I think the wheels just all have to be rolling in the same direction at the same time. And that's hard to do. But timing is everything, I think, here, along with just being really proud of the music you release and working really hard, because the moment you don't work hard, there is somebody behind you that's going to work 1,000 times harder. And I always told myself, if I lost that spark in me, which I thought I did for a while, if I had lost that spark in me and I wasn't happy doing this, that I would step out of the way to make space for a guy or a girl that wanted it more than me. That's only fair, because people who want it really bad. And if you don't want it that bad, you shouldn't be here taking up space. I genuinely get really good opportunities. I get to sit down with outlets. I've worked with People Magazine, Disney. I get work with Billboard. I've been on the radio, and I take up space. And I don't want to take up space for somebody if somebody wants it more than me. So I was really honest with myself. Like, I asked myself usually routinely, how bad do I want it still? Do I still want to work this hard for this? Because I don't want to take an opportunity away from a girl or a guy that wants it potentially more than me. I think that would be really, really unfair because we're in a town of thousands upon thousands of people who are just dying for a chance just to sit on a small stage just to sing one song. And when you really strip it back and see it that way, you realize how much your purpose here matters and if you want it bad enough or not. And that's something, and I'm now in my 30s. I moved here in my 20s. I'm in my 30s now. And I always have to be just more and more honest with myself every day due to the fact that, I want to get married. I want to have a family, and not that you can't do all of those things and pursue this, but it does hold space. And you have to be really conscious about that and have a lot of respect for it. So my journey here in Nashville has been interesting. It's been all over the place, but as of right now, I still love it. I still love what I do. And now I'm doing it in a new capacity where I'm writing. I'm a co-writer now. And that's brought a whole new level of excitement to being an artist here in Nashville.
Well, it sounds like a good time to say, enter Jeff.
Yeah.
Let's,
Um,
you mentioned that you met him in Nashville. So,
mhm.
what was that like? Like, how did you meet and what was your first impression?
Oh, it was the best thing in the world. I will never lie to anyone about this. And as much as I have a sad ending to the story, and while I think it's where it needed to be, and I'm glad at where I am now. I will never say that I'm not happy with how things turned out. I guess happy is a weird word. Grateful for how things turned out. I He swept me off my feet. It was like that it really did feel like out of the movies. It felt like I met him on a dating app because obviously I'm not a bar scene person. I kind of got that all out of my system in my early 20s. And when I moved here, I really did move here to work. I moved here for music. This was really my purpose. I wasn't here to mess around. So I got on the apps and I met him on Bumble. And I remember I had been on a few dates prior to him, and I was like, goodness gracious, this is awful here. And I really was considering canceling. And I thought to myself, no, I've committed to this one more date. So I'll go on this last date and then I'm just gonna take a minute and not go on dates and just, focus on music. So I was totally okay with that. And I go on this last date, and from the moment he rang my doorbell, it was like love at first sight. It was like, I thought, this is it. I genuinely thought after the second date, this is the one. Like, he is the one. Like, close up shop. I don't need to date or see anybody else for the rest of my life. This is it. And it really was like that for a really long time. I really believed we had a really, really magical relationship. And we got engaged in 2021, I believe, 2021, I believe, and planned the wedding. I mean, we've had our bumps in the road, but I think what I realized and the more I talk about it now and the more I've healed and I've gone through this all is I confuse chemistry with compatibility. And they always say marry your best friend. If I was honest with myself, I would say maybe we weren't very compatible and we weren't meant for each other in that way. But when you're in it, you don't think that. So I planned this magical wedding in Charleston, South Carolina. We did the showers, the bachelorette party. The first date that was scheduled was October 1st, and it was when Hurricane Ian was wiped that baby out. So that wedding got taken out from me, and we were in Charleston ready to go. People were already flying in. It was a whole thing. And all my vendors came together. And if you know anybody that's planned a wedding or you've planned a wedding, this is a miracle. This doesn't happen. All the vendors came together and said, we are going to all come together on the same day. On 6 months from now, we're all going to come together for free, basically. And we're going to do this all again for you. And I go, oh my gosh, this is amazing. How this never happens. This is like the wedding gods saying, this is amazing. But I looked at him that day and he didn't look as excited. And that worried me. That was just really weird. And he suggested getting married at the courthouse. And while I am not dogging anybody that's gotten married at a courthouse, for me, as a girl who planned her dream wedding and really does, my dad has no sons. He just has two girls. It really means a lot to my dad to walk me down the aisle. And I think for a lot of dads, it probably is a big deal if you have a daughter. And I just looked at him and I said, I think my dad would be absolutely heartbroken if he had spent all this time and they were so gracious enough to pay for our wedding, that he only walks me down the aisle once. And it's this wedding. So, and he wasn't happy with that. And I thought that was kind of interesting that, you would take that away from me at least I thought it felt a little selfish that you would even ask me to take that away from me and my father. And that was really that kind of worried me. And he kind of hit me with the whole, like, well, if you really love me, you get married at a courthouse. And that felt a little bit manipulative. So I thought that seems interesting. And so we get to the second date. We're almost there. We're 6 weeks away. And he calls it off over a text message.
Wow.
And we had already bought a house together, and I still live in that house today. So that was one of the things that I ended up with the house. But there's so much that comes with when you've built a life with somebody, and then to just call it off. And it wasn't just like calling off the wedding. It wasn't like, hey, let's postpone it. I'm calling it off and I'm done. Like, and I'm flipping the light switch, and now you're a stranger to me, and I'm going to block you on everything, and I don't know you. And that was like, how do you go from being somebody's what you thought best friend, strongest confidant, the person that you're supposed to trust the most in life because you're about to build a life with that person? When you get married, you say goodbye to the nest, right? I still love you, mom and dad, but now I'm building my own life. I'm going to carve my own path. And this was the person I was going to carve that path with. So for that all to just be ripped away from me in seconds, really felt earth shattering. Like, I've been through breakups before. I've experienced, minor loss in my life, but I realized when this happened to me that I've had a really easy life and that I haven't gone through nearly the life experience that I maybe told myself I had, because this shook my world. This really did shake it up a lot. And while it wasn't a death, it sure felt like one, because I haven't talked to him since. There's been no call of I'm sorry. There's been no accountability. Absolutely nothing. So it was like, really, when he flipped the switch. And I caught myself, as somebody who feels so in love and we have this like attachment style, I felt like I started to beg. And if I could tell myself anything now, I go, girl, do not beg. You don't want someone who doesn't want you. Like, why in the world would I want to marry somebody? We find ourselves asking ourselves a lot, what could I have done different? What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? I finally had to flip it and say, no. Why wasn't he enough for me? And that's really was the important question. Was we all are meant to find the person that we're supposed to be with. And he just clearly wasn't mine, because the person who's meant for me would never, ever have done that. And that helped me really kind of get out of things. And also, I'm a really big believer in God. I have a really strong faith. And the more I thought to myself that this was already in God's plan. And before I was even a blink in my parents' eyes and I was even on this earth, my story was already written in stone. This was supposed to happen to me in this timeline. Whether I like it or not, that's regardless, doesn't matter. This was supposed to happen. And that brought me so much peace, and it released a lot of the anger I had, because I was really angry for a long time that, 5 valuable years I felt were stolen from me. I started dating in my 20s, into my 30s. Those are really valuable years for a woman. I mean, I know a lot of things are, you can do it at any age, but really this was just something that mattered to me. He knew how badly I wanted, to be a wife, to be a mom. And those are things that very much matter to me when I'm surrounded by friends and everyone who's doing those things in life. And when you feel like it wasn't in a competition with people, but I was ready. My heart, my mind, my body, my soul, I was ready for that next chapter of life. So to take that all away from me all in an instance was really, really hard for me to grasp. But when I really sat back and thought this was already in God's plan, that brought me so much peace. And like I said, it helped me release the anger I had that I was so mad, because I was like, hey, this was already supposed to happen. And while I might not know the answers right now as to why this had to happen in this timeline and like this, and it had to take 5 years for it to figure it all out, it was already going to happen this way. And I need to be at peace with that and then move on accordingly. So that's kind of where I've been at now over the last year. And it's been a really, really beautiful thing, because anyone knows me, I don't stay down very long. I'm just not the girl that weeps on my couch with ice cream. It's just not like me. I am the type of person where I'm a real fiery person. So I'm like, hey, you already took those 5 years from me. And if you don't want to be with me, you're not going to take any more of my time. And me sitting on my couch for a year crying about it, all I'm allowing him to do is to steal more from me. And I'm not going to allow him to do that. And that wasn't going to be in my story. And I thought to myself, life doesn't come to you. You have to go to life. You're not entitled to anything. The world doesn't owe you anything. So if I really want to be a mom and I want to meet the one, I'm not going to meet him on my couch watching Netflix. I have to get out there and see what's out there. And I have to give myself permission that while I'm healing, it's okay to also start over. Because I think we get a lot confused with the idea of that you have to be fully healed and perfectly in a bow in a package first before trying to start over. And while that might be the case for some people, I know me as a person, we know ourselves more than anyone knows us, right? And I know that I'm capable of moving on while healing. So that's what I told myself to do, and that's what I did. So I think I gave myself a month to be sad. And then I said, you know what? That's already a month. That's 30 days too long that you're stealing from me again. And I got out there and I started dating again. Whether it was looking for the one or not, that wasn't the point. The point is that I'm not going to find my future and my happiness and the person that I'm meant to be with watching Love is Blind on my couch.
So there's a lot in that whole story. I'm curious, from the time of the hurricane, and you expressed that you both had different views about what should happen then.
Yes.
Did things go back to normal, or did it ever recover from that? And I mean, because it would seem like getting a text message, like, I can't even like,
No, I would say it was really hard from that moment on. It was, and we had a lot of, and again, I place no blame on anybody else but the person who makes the decision. However, I do think there was a lot of outside influences and other scenarios of how we should do it, how we shouldn't do it. And what I found in him, and again, this isn't a bashing situation on him. It was just, I felt that he was more lost than I was, in the sense of what he was looking for and what he wanted. And that's why I always told myself when this happened to me, I said I didn't need to go, eat, pray, love into finding myself again. I knew who I was. I wasn't lost. In my opinion, he was the lost one. I don't necessarily think he knew exactly what he wanted. So somebody who stands for nothing will fall for anything. And I truly believe that there were a lot of opinions that were thrown our way, and he soaked every opinion up like a sponge. And at the end of the day, it's me and it's him. And we have to make those decisions. Of course, we can ask for people's opinions. We can take things into consideration, but ultimately it's a decision made between him and I. And I felt like everyone else was making a decision for him, but him. And I really had to ask myself at that point, do I even want to? I'm hoping that's not him forever, right? I believe everybody has room for growth and all that. So I'm pray every night that that's what he finds and that's what he does. But me in that moment, I had realized, do I want to be with somebody who feels they need the opinions of the peanut gallery to make a decision on their future? And the answer was no. I want somebody who makes the decisions for themselves and doesn't need the peanut gallery to make a decision for their life. And that is kind of where I ended up feeling like, okay, yeah, this isn't right. And I didn't see it while I was fully in it. I mean, like I said, I was madly in love. I can never say I wasn't. And I really wanted it to work. But when I realized when he was letting go, I kept clinging harder and holding on harder. And that's where I think I could have just loosened up a bit, because ultimately, do we want to hold on to someone who's letting go of us? No, really, we don't. But I think we get scared. I got scared. I was like, I felt him pulling away. So I pulled him closer harder. And I think that was the wrong thing to do. I should have just let him go. And I didn't, because he is the one that got down on one knee and asked for my hand in marriage to my father and said that he wanted to marry me. So I tried to believe people at face value. You asked me to marry you, which means you must love me. You want to spend the rest of your life with me. I don't think anybody questions the person who gets down on one knee and says, "Will you marry me?" and go, I wonder if he really means it. I believed him. But what was the hardest part to unwork and unwind and rework in my brain was having to re-believe him when he said he didn't want to marry me. Because I was holding on to the man that got down on one knee that said, "Will you marry me?" Not the man that was saying, "I don't want to marry you." And really what I learned by, going to therapy, and it's like, believe people who they are, believe what they say at face value. He's showing you who he is right now. Why are you trying to live in what was or what could be? This is what is right now. And I had to just face that head on and say, I don't even want to walk down the aisle to a man if I feel like I'm having to like hold him there at gunpoint. Like that's awful. Like I want to be valued and loved and respected the way I want to value and love and respect my future partner. So that's all we could ever want for each other. And while I think I was here's the thing, is I really think I'm a great partner. I really think I'm a good significant other. And I have my faults, of course I do, but I do know what I bring to the table and what I offer. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be perfect for everybody. We're not everybody's perfect match, or that would be just a chaotic mess out there. And I think that's why love is so hard to find and to really find that person, because it's not supposed to be that easy. And while I know I'm really great in a relationship, I'm not going to be great for everybody. And that's why I said, I think at the beginning of this, I really confused chemistry with compatibility. I think we had a lot of great chemistry. I just don't think we had a lot of compatibility. So looking back on it now and having the time to reflect in a year of it all, I realized our compatibility was quite low. And I found myself kind of going from vacation to vacation with him. And that is a huge mistake. I realized is everyone can have a good relationship while we're drinking a pina colada on the beach, watching a sunset, like, and yeah, that's a good story for anybody. And we did that a lot. And I was honest about that. I fixed a lot of our fights with vacations. And that was really where you need to work on is at home. That's where you're going to be spending most of your time and building your life is at home. And I focused a lot on trying to make things pretty for us. And we looked good, really good together on paper and in a picture. And I think I lived in that fantasy too. And if I reflect back on it now, I'm like, gosh, were we just a really good Instagram couple? We looked really, really good together. And I'll give him credit for credit's due in some of the things. He's a really good looking guy. So I think I got caught up in that too. And I think it's easy to get caught up in how you look versus how you actually are. And you let yourself believe it. And I really did. I really believed it. I believed because we looked so good on Instagram and to everybody else and on vacation that we must be a really, really, really good match. And we really, really weren't.
So then the songs about this, I'm sure, maybe come out to help you process some of it.
Absolutely. And like I had said, I moved to Nashville being really unapologetic about not being a songwriter. I was totally good with being a vehicle for really good songs. And I still believe in that. I am never going to take away that platform. There are so many artists here that cut songs that are from other, from other songwriters. And especially since in this city, there's a songwriters here that have no interest in being an artist. They just want to be a songwriter. And with all the trouble that you watch songwriters have to go through, especially now today with what they should earn. And I really wanted to be a catalyst. And for that, I wanted to be kind of that person that helped songwriters get their music out into the world. I really still believe in that. And at the end of the day, the best song wins, whether you write it or you don't write it. I think as artists, we need to pull our ego out of it completely and realize that we are doing a job because it's supposed to be released to the public. We have to do what's best in the public's interest, not in our interest. And we forget that this is a business. And people, the audience wants good music. And if you keep yourself in this egocentric thing where like, oh no, I have to also be a writer, I have to have the points on this, I have to do this, you miss out on really, really good music, like good songwriters. The thousands of songs that are in this town that will never see the light of day just like breaks my heart. So I was very unapologetic about being that kind of an artist. Then this happened to me in life. And I turn to music like everybody else does to help me heal, to make me feel less alone as a listener, not as a singer, not as a songwriter, not as a performer, but as a listener. And I realized there was nothing out there that made me feel less alone. I was like, wait, why do I hear a lot about divorce country? Why do I hear a lot about like just breakups in general? But I'm not hearing any songs about like a broken engagement. And then it was kind of my aha moment where I go, okay, maybe this means that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And this is a sign that I finally have something to say. I finally have something to bring to the songwriting community that I didn't have before. And I didn't feel like I had anything big enough or important enough to say. And now I do, because if I'm feeling alone and I can't find music that's relating to what I'm going through, that means there are thousands of other people out there that feel the same way. So I need to write my story. And I finally need to share my own words versus singing other people's words. And I got in the rooms with some of my best friends here in town that I trust wholeheartedly with my vulnerability. And we wrote these songs, and I couldn't be more proud of them. And what's so interesting is I've been so proud of the music I've released up until now, but it's now that I'm getting the best reaction from people. And at first I felt like a little bit bothered by that. I go, oh my gosh, you didn't like all the other things that I've released? But then I realized, no, this is the biggest compliment I've ever received in all of this time of being in the music industry. It's my words. It's actually stuff I've written and that I've co-written that people are liking the most out of everything I've done. And if that doesn't prove, that your own words you connect with the most. And I was very, steadfast in the idea that that's not true. I can sing someone else's words and also relate to them and be that kind of an artist. But this just kind of proved to me that my words and my story is actually relating more to the public than any of my other stuff has done before. So I'm very, very proud that I've taken this leap into the songwriting world that I thought I was never going to do. And I was totally okay with it. And I have found this new love, and it's reignited this passion in music for me, because I found a new love in this. I found the songwriting world. And now I'm a part of this community that I feel like I was never a part of before. So many more doors can open for me now. I can actually perform at writers' rounds. I was never able to do that before. So I couldn't get on stage and sing in a town where I moved to get on a stage and sing. And I couldn't do that because I, consciously, I couldn't in my feeling good about myself, get on a stage and sing songs that technically I didn't write and try to pass them off as my own. That just felt so wrong. So I never took place in all of these writers' rounds, and now I can. And it's opened up just a whole new world to the music business that I hadn't seen before. And if it wasn't for this huge catastrophic life event in my life that I guess I would say, anyone would say I wish didn't happen to me, I'm so glad and grateful that it did, because of all the things that have now started to happen and all the growth that I've seen just in myself alone in just a year. I mean, it's crazy what just 365 days can do in somebody. And the amount of growth I've seen in myself and as an artist and in my music has been tremendous. And I'm very, very grateful for that.
So I'm curious, like, how do you decide how much of your story to put out there? I mean, like, have you ever felt like, well, maybe that I shouldn't say that, or that's crossing some
Mm.
line or something like that?
You know, no, I am such a, like I said to you guys earlier, I am an open book. There's nothing I'm not nervous to say. But I will say, all the music that's coming out, none of it's mean and none of it's bitter.
Hmm.
While I could be angry and I could say some mean things, because I've got plenty of them that I could say, my mom and dad just did not raise me that way. So I knew what I wanted to put out into the world, because we have already so much in this industry, saturated music of divorced country that has come from females in country music.
Hmm.
I really wanted to be careful about what I brought to the space. And I wanted to be really respectful of the situation and what I was bringing to an audience. At the end of the day, this is for people to absorb and to listen to. And I want people to take something away from it that I'm also proud of. And I do honor the idea of marriage. I do still respect that idea. And I wanted to be really careful about what I brought to this space. And so I didn't want to bring a lot of my anger with it, and a lot of my bitterness and a lot of the built up aggression, because ultimately those feelings will fade. And what's underneath that was more sadness and disappointment and heartbreak. And that's something that I feel like will be more vulnerable and more relatable than being angry. I think anger is just such a temporary feeling. And so is the heartbreak and sadness. But I didn't want to bring the anger side of me to this. So that is where I did draw the line. Is I could write angry song after angry song if I wanted to, but it just wasn't going to help me get better. And I don't think that those songs help anybody else get better either. I think if we just choose to break down those anger walls and we just show the more vulnerable side of it, I think that does more good than the angry stuff.
Do
So you won't hear mean stuff coming from the music. It's definitely more on the vulnerable, disappointed side, sad side, or just being really honest about it just didn't end up the way I thought it would. And I'm very proud of that part. But ultimately, when it comes to like interviews and things that I do, like People Magazine was the one that was going to cover the wedding in itself.
Mhm.
So what they did is instead they did the exclusive on one of the singles and the music video. So how weird that is. Instead of covering the wedding, they covered the breakup. But you got to take it where you can get it, be
Yeah.
grateful. But I was really open and honest in that interview, and I've been very, very blunt and very honest. I think my story can help somebody else, and since I am so vulnerable and honest and open, I might as well be, because there's a lot of people that don't want to share their story, and that's okay too. I'm just really not that girl. I'm a very like, hey, ask me, I'll tell you anything. Because
Yeah.
I also tell people my downfalls too. I wasn't the perfect partner. I know there were times where I could have probably been more supportive here or done something differently, but the woulda, shoulda, coulda, I
Yeah.
mean, that you can go back and do that all day. And all you can do is grow from it and learn from it. And that's what I am choosing to do moving forward.
Do you think people like your friends or, people you work with are just kind of waiting, like, she's going to write this song that, she kind of shows her
Yeah,
pissed off side kind of thing?
I think where people were interested to see what I was going to do, because I told a lot of people I wasn't going to release anything about this because I
Right.
wasn't sure I was going to, because it really was all in the time that Kelsey Ballerini released her album.
Hmm.
That was when I was going through the breakup. So we officially ended everything on March 1st. Her stuff came out on that Valentine's Day, that right before that.
Hmm.
So, and then you had a lot of, like Carly has released stuff that has a lot about to do with that. So I was like, gosh, do I even want to enter into this arena talking about this? Is this overly saturated? Is this overly talked about? And what I realized, so I told a lot of people I wasn't going to do it. And I genuinely thought, right after the breakup happened, I released a cover of Hunter Hayes' song, You Think You Know Somebody. And I thought that was going to be all I was going to release. And I was going to just let it lay as a cover and just move on and just beat on. And then I go, I think there's just so much more for me to say, so much that I never got to say. And the song that's out right now that I think is the one that hits the hardest with people and is done, and I do believe is going to do the best, is the song Took Back. And that song for me was really a closure song for me. It was it was written in the perspective of having a conversation with somebody that I was never able to actually have. That song was written talking to him. And while it's out there for everybody else to hear, that was my only way for him to hear my last words. He cut me off at the knees. I was blocked on everything. It was a done deal. I had no access to him anymore. So my only way actually to have my feelings of what's happened to me out to him is actually through these outlets and through music. So this is kind of why I chose to do it. I didn't feel like he ever gave me the opportunity to have a conversation that I believe I deserved to have. So that song specifically was my last parting words to him, as if he were sitting right in front of me and I was able to just have my last words with him.
Interesting. So do you think being vulnerable and, your vulnerability actually leads to better songs?
100%.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, has it ever? I mean, this song to me is it's my absolute most favorite song I've ever released. The best work I've ever done. Even with the music video, I'm the most proud of that. And I've been so proud of all of the other art I've created and contributed to. But this really did bring out stuff in me. And the amount of messages I've received from people telling me their story, or moms saying, wow, this really hit home for me. My daughter just went through this, or that's all I've needed to hear. And that's exactly why I did the song, because I was in their shoes. Even though I get to be the person that gets to release the music because this is the business I'm in. But when I went through this, I turned to music like a fan, as a listener, and I couldn't find anything. And I felt so alone, because I really do turn to music to help me heal. Like when I love listening to music to just make me feel like, okay, this was meant for me. This is why music exists, right?
Yeah.
We put music out into the world so people can attach their stories to them. And the fact that I couldn't find any song to attach my story to, that was why I wrote Took Back. And I was like, okay, now I'm getting messages from people, and it's proving that my vulnerability is doing the job that it was meant to do. It was meant for people to be able to attach their stories to this song in a time where there isn't a lot of music about that out there. And that was really, really important to me. And that just meant, okay, I'm on the right track. I'm doing the right thing. And I'm so glad. And it just reaffirms why I put it out. And then I'm so glad that I chose to, especially when I battled so much, am I going to put stuff like this out? Am I not? Am I going to do it? Am I not? Am I going to do it? And I'm so glad now that I did, because it's really proven to me that it was needed. And even though my songs aren't heard nearly on the scale of a lot of other artists, I've seen this record already do more than anything else I've done. And it's, again, that was just a sign as well. I mean, I think it's already at over 120,000 streams on Spotify. And I don't get those kind of numbers, as an independent artist. And to watch this happen, I go, wow, okay, hold on. This means that this was needed, that this is working. This is not that I want it to work in the sense because it's going to bring me opportunity in this business. It was more so like other people needed to hear this.
Yeah.
So what took so long for people to share this side of a love story? Because it's not out there. I don't know if you know the artist, and she recently has started releasing music about her broken engagement. And we must have been writing at the exact same time, because I didn't know this music was coming out. Julia Cole. And she has music that's all about her broken engagement. And I go, wow, like, okay. So we kind of were on the same like wavelength without even talking to each other. We like, this isn't out there for people. And now we have finally started releasing music into the world that people can attach this heartbreaking story to.
Interesting. So, do you have was there a favorite part of writing this song? I mean, like, I assume that songwriting is like, some parts of it are fun and, all of that, and some parts of it are a little tedious. But, I mean, is there a favorite part of that you enjoy?
Yeah. First of all, I love just getting in rooms and talking with people, sharing stories. So
Hmm.
that part in itself, it's a very connecting feeling. Again, I think I just love the camaraderie of songwriting. That's been very fun for me. And to collaborate with people who are far better than me at doing this and to watch them kind of help piece my story together has been such a beautiful thing to watch. It's like going into the studio and watching the musicians bring your music to life as well. Like you're just like mesmerized. I'm equally as mesmerized in the songwriting room. And I felt that all of these stories really did flow out of me quite easily. I find it very fun coming up with the idea, the plot line of a song, because
Right.
that's really what I connect to the most. I'm not good at the melody aspect. I have a lot of work to do on that end. So I'm so glad I'm surrounded by people who are just so amazing at this. But I am a good word person. I'm good at coming up with the lyrics. I'm good at coming up with the titles. And when I came into the room and I talked about Took Back, I had this idea that the first thing that came out of my brain was it wasn't just a ring you took back. Because the ring symbolized something so much more. People think, oh, it's all about the ring, it's all about the wedding, and it's not. It's what that symbolizes.
Yeah.
That's love, that's promise, that's future, that's time, that's honesty, that's loyalty. All of that is wrapped up into this little piece of jewelry that you wear in your left hand. And that's kind of how we got to the second verse too, is, before the breakup, we bought a house together. I saw the house very much like I saw the ring. The ring symbolized, this marriage I'm about to enter into, and that symbolizes something so much more than a diamond. The house, well, it's just four walls, foundation, plumbing, paint, a roof, but it's what's inside the house. It's you, it's the memories you're going to make, it's the family you're going to build, it's the dinners you're going to cook, it's the people you're going to have over, it's the holidays you're going to celebrate. It's turning a house into a home. And that's what the house symbolized for me. And that's why in the second verse, oh, it's just a house. Because it's just a house. It's just walls. It's nothing else, but it's what you do inside of the house that makes it a home. And that's kind of how I felt about the ring. And so I wanted to come up with, symbolisms and that you do that are entering into a future with somebody that when you take out the meaning behind them, they just become materialistic things.
Yeah.
They just become things. They mean nothing at that point anymore if they don't come with the intention of the promise that was behind them.
Right.
Or the memories that you had hoped to make with them. So that's why I think it was a little easier for me to still live in this house, because we really didn't create memories here. We didn't do anything. So I was like, okay, I get to start over fresh. I get to make new memories in this home. I get to create the home I always wanted in this house. And that was just how I got to writing that song. And I love the symbolism that came out of it. And in the bridge, I talk about that you took away love and my time. And worst of all, you took my heart.
Yeah.
Because when I said yes, I really said yes. I
Yeah.
said yes to my forever and I meant it. And that was the hardest thing to have to rework in my brain, that all of these things that I've romanticized that I already saw myself, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years down the road, I had to erase all in a moment's notice and just say, that won't happen. It will happen maybe with somebody else, but it won't happen the way I thought it was going to happen. And that's kind of hard to rework in your head.
Yeah. So do you think that, I mean, I guess the whole breakup situation has made you a little, I don't know, maybe a little leery?
No. Okay, so that's the one thing I will give myself credit for, is that I am a girl who wears my heart on my sleeve. And I always tell my friends too who go through breakups and stuff, I say, get back out there, and I'm the type of person that will just continue to put myself out there. And I'm really proud of myself for that.
Yeah, but I mean, you put yourself out there and you start dating and stuff, but I'm sure there's like moments of like, oh, wait a second.
Oh, sure.
Red flag.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. I would definitely say that, yeah, that took a bit,
Yeah.
but I was able, and I still catch myself doing that. I think that there's going to be, but luckily what I think helps with that the best is just communication
Yeah.
and talking about it. If you bottle it up and you don't talk about it, then you don't give other people who you allow to enter into your life the honest opportunity to show up for you the way that you want them to.
Sure.
So it's just about, I think, strong communication. And that was something that I have done my best to do moving forward.
All right. I'm going to let Kat jump in and ask one more question because we've kept you, and it's been great talking to you for sure.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Kat.
So, do you hope Jeff hears the song?
I think he probably has, right? I mean, but yes, just because in the manner in which it was written, which I had told you before, yes, I absolutely do, because like I wasn't given the opportunity to share what I wanted to share. So I would be lying to you if I said no.
Right? Well, I'm sure, it's closure for you either way, whether he hears it or if you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, that was me putting it out in my last, that was it, right? Those were my last words. So whether they were responded to or not, I was never looking for a response. If that was at all potentially what you were wondering, that never has even crossed my mind. I never thought to talk about it with him or anything in that regard. It was just me putting it out there and letting the pieces lie where they will forever lie.
I guess I'm kind of just thinking of it like, he sends a text to you and then like just blocks everything. So you put a song out, and so that's kind of like tit for tat, it's like, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was something that I felt like I needed to do, especially since I wasn't coming to this with more fire or more hostility or anger. It was just, I felt really good and proud of what I said. And I have no regrets, and I will stand by how proud I am of the work that I'm about to put out. And I have nothing to be fearful of or ashamed of. And I'm glad it'll be out in the world.
Tiffany, tell us what's coming up for you. What do you got going on? Are you touring or writing more, or what's the deal?
Well, I'm definitely writing more. So that's something that I didn't think I was going to continue to, and I absolutely love it. So I will be absolutely writing more music. But because I'm writing music, I actually get to participate in all the writers rounds, which is so much fun. So that's basically what I have really to look forward to right now, is we're booking them constantly. And I'm finally getting to perform in, places like the Listening Room, which are really big venues here, that I came here just dreaming about being on those stages, and I couldn't because I wasn't technically writing my music. And now I can, and I feel really good about that. I'd already been on radio tours, so I don't know if that's going to be something that we do again, but I would love to. I love being out on the road. I love going to meeting people. I think that's my thing is, it's the most important thing about country music is the relationships built and human to human interaction. I think that's genuinely what country music is all about. It's relating to people. And if you're not out meeting people and singing for people live, then we're missing the entire part of the connection part of country music. So I hope that what's for me next is just performing a lot more and getting out there and meeting people face to face.
Awesome. Well, hopefully we'll get down there to Nashville, and, we'll be able to look you up and see what you're singing about then.
I would love that. Thank you guys so much for everything.
Yeah, thanks for being on. We enjoyed this a lot, and pretty insightful. Lots of stuff to unpack there. So
yeah, sure. But I think it's good. I'm glad that I'm getting out there and talking about it. And thank you to outlets like you that are allowing me to share my story.
Yeah, so I did want to ask you one final question. I'm looking at your website, and you had a podcast. Is that true?
I do have a podcast.
Oh, you do?
It's called Yeah, it's called What's Mine Is Yours. We're actually revamping it right now, and that's why we've seen a little bit of a break. We're working on season 2 now,
Uh-huh.
and it's about basically giving the microphone back to the songwriter. So we spend so much time, interviewing artists and kind of, the people who are in the spotlight. But what we don't realize is we're not hearing from the people who are actually writing the words that you're relating to.
Mhm.
And I think we need to hear more from them, not just the stories behind the songs, 'cause I think we hear that a lot from time to time, but more about their take and their opinion on the music industry in itself. I think we need to get their opinion. We need to hear them more. And what I've learned through doing this, interviewing Nashville's biggest songwriters, is how much they want to talk. It's because
Mhm.
they're not spoken to. And I think we do a decently bad job at acting like we support the songwriter, but yet we don't put our money where our mouth is.
Mhm.
And this was my way of showing them that I not only want to say that I support you, I want to show you that I support you.
Kat, any last words?
Well, I mean, I have so many
Yeah,
because
I know.
I've been drawn into this story, as soon as I knew we were going to do the interview. So, I just wish you the best with, all the stories that you're going to tell, all the experiences that you'll have that will inspire those. And then I love how that you are putting a spotlight on the songwriter because, Matt and I love writers and
Mhm.
really appreciate all the work that goes into that so that everyone can enjoy, the product of their creativity. I guess one thing I would ask you is your take on AI and the
Mhm.
impact of writing.
Yeah, I think that can help in other avenues, but I don't like it in this. I think this is it could be really damaging. I mean, I hadn't actually sat down and messed with it or seen what it can do. My dad was actually out to dinner the other night, and he said he just started like messing with the program and showing me how fast it can do that. And it is very scary. And I don't support that at all. I think that's going to be really detrimental because what it produces is actually not bad music either. The lyrics aren't bad. So I was like, how would you ever know, that I don't know how you filter what's real and what's not. And I think that's what's scary about in general today with all social media, right? What's real and what's not.
Yeah.
And that part to me is just very scary. I know social media is a great tool for artists like myself to get heard on a platform where if we're not, say, signed or what, or, but I do think that we're headed for a lot of trouble. And if we don't kind of pull the reins in now, and I almost don't know if we're too far gone. I'm not sure. But it's going to take a lot more people than just a few of us to say something. And I'm just a little nervous at what we're heading towards, and I'm a little nervous for the music industry in its whole entirety. I'm scared of the quality of the music. I'm scared of the opportunity that won't be had, that will be had, the oversaturation of the market,
Mm.
the not taking risks on people that potentially really deserve it. I think that there's just a lot of scariness that's happening in the music industry. I'm scared for our younger generations of their ability to sit down and actually watch or listen to a song in its entirety versus all of this 30 seconds and I'm moving on. I mean, I think what we're entering into is fast food music. And that scares me so much. I think about the songs that have gone down in history, right? That were number ones at radio and they will be forever remembered. I don't know exactly how many number ones we have a year, but I know it's a lot. And I can tell you in the last 5 years, how many of them are you actually going to remember in 10 years from now?
Yeah.
So are we creating legacy or are we just creating fast food music? So I'm very worried about it, but I haven't quite figured out how I can make a difference. So in the meantime, that's what I'm doing with my podcast, but I'm trying to figure out what better way I can make a difference in this and so people can understand. And but in the meantime, yeah, I'm a little worried.
Understandably so. Well, it's been a fascinating episode, and we really appreciate you being our guest and sharing your story today.
Thank you so much for having me, you guys.
You come back anytime.